It's junk. The laughter came first, sharp, echoing off the gym walls. A paper fan blade wobbled on a crooked wire, and someone snorted. You really think that thing can light a bulb? Another burst of laughter. And just like that, a 13-year-old boy's dream dimmed before it could even shine. In a sea of polished displays and proud parents, one small project stood alone. Built from scrap, powered by hope, ignored by everyone except the ones who mocked it. His name was Marcus Hill. And that moment, that flicker of humiliation, would become the spark that changed everything. Because sometimes, the ideas the world laughs at the loudest are the ones that end up lighting it. If you believe dreams shouldn't die because of laughter, tap like and subscribe now. Because in the next few minutes, you'll see how one boy's failed science project turned into a legacy that powered thousands and humbled the very people who once mocked him. The sound of footsteps echoed across the hall before the door even opened. The chatter died down. Not gradually, but like a switch flicked off. Dozens of students froze mid-sentence, their laughter dissolving into a hush thick enough to feel. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was something heavier. Anticipation, maybe. The kind that hums through a room when everyone senses that someone important is about to appear. Then the door opened. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped in, carrying a slim leather folder under one arm. His posture was straight, movements calm and deliberate. He crossed to the desk at the front and placed the folder down without a word. The room waited. He looked young, late 30s, but something about his presence felt older. His skin was deep brown, his hair neatly cropped, and his eyes, sharp, calm, unreadable, scanned the room as if he already knew every student there. "Good morning," he said finally. His voice was low, even, commanding without effort. "I'm Professor Marcus Hill. Welcome to Advanced Energy Systems." A few students typed his name into their laptops. Others whispered. But in the far left corner, 3 students froze completely. Jared, Kayla, and Ben. At first it was disbelief. Then recognition began to sink in. Kayla's lips parted. "Oh my God!" Jared's pen slipped from his fingers. Ben leaned back, eyes darting to the floor. It couldn't be him. Not that Marcus, not the quiet, skinny kid from middle school they'd laughed at. But it was. Same name, same eyes. Only now, they weren't shy. They carried the calm power of someone who'd fought for everything. Professor Hill turned toward the projector. "Before we begin," he said, tapping the remote, "a few ground rules." The screen flickered to life. Neat slides, precise lines, his style exact. No phones during lectures, no late assignments, and most importantly, no shortcuts. In this field, shortcuts collapse systems. He paused. And trust me, I've seen enough collapses to know. The students chuckled softly, except the 3 in the corner. They were still staring. Pale, uneasy. Marcus caught their eyes. His gaze lingered, not cruel, just long enough for recognition to pass both ways, then turned back to the slides. "Let's start with a question," he said. "What's the most powerful energy source on Earth?" Hands shot up. "Solar? Wind? Hydrogen fuel cells?" Marcus nodded, then said, "Potential. The most powerful energy source on Earth is potential, the energy of what could be if someone dares to build it." His tone shifted slightly, not lecturing but personal. He wrote 3 words on the board. Potential. Pressure. Purpose. "The reason we study energy isn't just about power," he continued. "It's about transformation. Pressure creates energy. Friction creates movement. The things that test you," he said quietly, "can also fuel you." Jared's pulse quickened. The words echoed something he'd heard years ago, a trembling boy's voice at a science fair. One day, you'll see. Even broken things can work if you know how to use them. Professor Hill, a student near the front asked, are you the Marcus Hill who built the micro-generator that won the National Energy Innovation Award? Marcus smiled faintly. That's me. The room murmured in awe. Someone whispered, he's famous? Marcus brushed it off. Not famous, he said. Just stubborn. The class laughed, but the three in the corner didn't. He continued the lecture with calm precision, occasionally glancing towards them, just briefly, enough to make them shift uncomfortably. Beneath that composure, he felt something subtle rising inside. Not revenge, but quiet satisfaction. The kind that comes from outgrowing what once hurt you. As the clock neared the end of the hour, he closed his folder. That's all for today. Next class, we'll discuss sustainable design models. Bring your curiosity and your discipline. Chairs scraped, laptops snapped shut, and the hum of chatter returned. But as the students filed out, Marcus looked toward the corner. You three, he said. They froze. Jared half turned, dread written across his face. Kayla's breath caught. Ben swallowed hard. Marcus gestured toward the front. Stay a moment. When the last student left, silence returned. Marcus leaned against the desk, arms folded, expression unreadable. The three stood awkwardly in front of him, guilt heavy in the air. He let the quiet stretch, then said, Long time. The room faded. The sound of the lecture hall, the hum of computers, the soft shuffle of shoes, all of it seemed to dissolve around Marcus. His eyes drifted to the floor for a second, and went deep in thought, remembering how exactly it started 15 years ago at Middlebrook Middle School Science Fair. Here's how it started. The gym buzzed with voices and laughter. Posters hung unevenly from tables, and every few seconds a new announcement crackled through the old speakers. It was loud, messy, and competitive, a battlefield disguised as a school event. Near the back stood 13-year-old Marcus Hill, thinner and quieter, dressed in a faded hoodie and worn sneakers. His table wasn't fancy, a plain cardboard display with crooked letters that read, Renewable Energy for Low-Income Homes. On it sat a small wind-powered generator built from scrap metal, an old fan, and a broken phone charger. It wasn't beautiful, but when he spun the blades, a small light bulb flickered on. For a moment, Marcus smiled. It worked. He looked around at the other projects, glowing circuits, polished models, colorful posters. Most of them had clearly been built by parents, not kids. But his was real. It was his. He imagined the judges seeing the light turn on, imagined his mother smiling when he told her it worked. She couldn't come. She was working another double shift at the packaging plant. But she promised she'd call later to ask how it went. Then came the voice he dreaded. Yo, look at that thing. Is that from a junkyard? Jared's laugh cut through the noise. He was taller, louder, the kind of kid who liked being seen. Kayla and Ben followed close behind, holding sodas and wearing the smug look of kids who already knew they'd win. Kayla smirked. What's that supposed to be? A broken fan? Ben grinned. Looks like something out of a trash can. Marcus tried to ignore them. It's a wind-powered micro-generator, he said quietly. It converts motion into electricity. It could help power homes that don't have... Jared interrupted. Yeah, sure. Maybe in your imagination. The laughter came again, sharper this time. A few kids nearby turned to watch. Marcus straightened the display board, forcing a small smile. He'd practiced his explanation over and over, but under their laughter, the words came out smaller. It works, he said softly, spinning the blade. The bulb flickered weakly. Kayla leaned closer, phone already up. Say cheese, Marcus. I want to remember this innovation. The click of her camera made his stomach twist. Jared grinned. Gonna post that later. Science fair fail of the year. Ben reached out and flicked one of the fan blades. The whole thing wobbled, then tipped. The bulb went dark. A few teachers noticed, but none stepped in. Mr. Collins, the coordinator, walked past and said politely, Interesting concept, Marcus. Maybe next year try something a little more advanced. Then he moved on. That stung more than the laughter. Marcus picked up the generator, trying not to let them see his hands shake. He adjusted the wires, bent the blade back into place. His voice was steady but low. You'll see, he whispered. It works. Sure it does, Jared said. In your dreams. When the judges came by later, Marcus presented his project as best he could. The bulb flickered again, weak but real. The judges nodded politely and moved on. By the end of the day, Jared's sleek, parent-designed, smart sensor system won first place. Kayla's clean water purifier took second. Ben got third. Marcus's name wasn't mentioned at all. As the crowd cheered, he stood there in silence, hands on the box that held his project. The noise felt distant. He packed up each piece carefully, the blade, the motor, the wires, like they mattered. Then he walked toward the exit while the laughter followed him. Hey, genius, Jared shouted. Maybe next time build something that actually works. Marcus stopped in the doorway and turned his head slightly. One day, he said quietly, you'll see. Even broken things can work, if you know how to use them. He stepped outside. The afternoon sun was fading, painting the cracked sidewalk in gold. He sat on the curb, the box beside him, the small fan blade poking out from the top. A breeze passed. The blade turned once, then again, spinning just enough to make the faintest spark of light. Marcus smiled. That spark, small, fragile, and unseen by anyone but him, was the start of everything that would come next. The fan blade spun once more, catching the fading light. The hum deepened, steadied, and became something else entirely, the rhythmic whir of turbines. Marcus blinked, and the cracked sidewalk dissolved into gleaming tile floors. Marcus slowly slides back into the reality of the present day in the lecture hall, standing before 30 silent students as a professor. Professor Marcus Hill straightened his notes, the faintest smile touching his lips. The years had softened his voice, but not its power. Let's continue, he said. Today's case study, microenergy systems for off-grid housing. Behind him, the projector flickered to life, revealing a sleek 3D model of a compact wind generator rotating smoothly in digital air. This design, he continued, was inspired by an early prototype. It was built from scrap metal, PVC pipes, and a broken fan. The idea was simple: renewable power for families who couldn't afford electricity. In the back row, Jared froze. Kayla's pen stopped mid-note. Ben's grip on his notebook tightened. The hum of the projector filled the air, heavy, suffocating. Marcus spoke evenly, eyes scanning the class. It didn't look like much. People laughed at it, said it was worthless. He paused, letting the words linger. Then he added quietly, but every failure has potential energy, waiting to be transformed. He turned, clicked the remote again, and the next slide appeared. A faded photo of a middle school science fair. A crooked display board read, "Renewable energy for low-income homes." In front of it stood a boy in a blue hoodie, his shy smile barely masking nervous pride. A murmur swept through the class. "Is that?" someone whispered. Marcus looked at the photo for a long moment before answering. "Yes, that was me. 13 years old, my first real project. Gasps. Whispers. The air thickened with realization. Jared felt his throat close. Kayla's face drained of color. Ben couldn't even lift his head. Marcus kept his tone calm, almost gentle. It wasn't impressive. It broke, it failed every test, and people laughed. But I learned something that day. That ideas don't die because others don't understand them. They die when you start believing the laughter. He clicked again. The projector filled with images. Small villages lit by glowing lamps, turbines spinning on dusty hillsides, children reading under steady light. That little fan prototype, he said, became the foundation for my first research grant. Today, over 70 rural communities are powered by models derived from that design. The room was utterly still. Even the hum of the fan above felt reverent. Marcus turned off the projector. Sometimes, he said softly, the world's solutions begin as someone's punchline. His gaze swept across the room and landed on Jared, Kayla, and Ben. He didn't glare. He didn't smirk. But in that steady look was everything. Memory, forgiveness, and something deeper. Quiet authority earned through pain and persistence. He exhaled. Now, he said, breaking the silence, your first assignment. Design a renewable system that works with minimal materials. No excuses. Innovation starts where resources end. He began collecting his papers, but no one moved. Kayla whispered, he built that when he was 13? Jared didn't answer. Ben's hand trembled slightly. The bell finally rang, but instead of the usual rush, the students filed out slowly, some glancing back with awe, some nodding in quiet respect. Only 3 stayed behind. Marcus noticed. He looked up. You 3, he said simply. The words cut through the air. The classroom door clicked shut as the last of the students left. Marcus walked towards the window, sunlight cutting across his face, dust motes spinning in the still air. It's strange, he said after a pause. You never really forget the sound of laughter, especially when it's directed at you. Jared shifted uneasily. Kayla bit her lip. Ben stared at the floor. Marcus turned, expression calm but unreadable. I'm not angry, he said. In fact, I should thank you. That moment pushed me harder than any encouragement ever could. He let the words hang for a second. But understand this. Mockery can't kill a dream unless the dreamer lets it. The silence felt heavier than any punishment. Jared's chest burned with guilt. Kayla's eyes shimmered. Ben finally whispered, We didn't know. We were kids. Marcus nodded slowly. And kids grow up, he said. The question is, do they change? He looked out the window again. The wind turbines outside turned lazily in the fading light. You see those blades? He said quietly. Same principle as that old fan, same wind, just refined, focused, directed. He turned back to them. That's the difference between a boy who gave up and a man who learned from it. No one spoke. The weight of truth pressed the room flat. Marcus glanced once more at the keychain hanging from his bag, the tiny, curved piece of fan metal glinting faintly. He smiled, not out of pride, but peace. Class dismissed, he said. The door opened. The 3 of them left silently, heads down, hearts heavy. Marcus stayed, watching the turbines spin. The hum filled the room, low, steady, endless. The same sound that once marked his humiliation now played like a hymn of triumph. The hallway outside the lecture hall buzzed with voices, but Jared barely heard them. He stood still, backpack hanging loosely, eyes fixed on the door. Kayla and Ben had already left, whispering nervously as they disappeared down the corridor. But he couldn't move. Something inside him said this moment couldn't end without him saying what had been buried for years. He glanced through the glass pane. Professor Marcus Hill was still inside, tidying his desk, the late sunlight cutting across his shoulders. Jared took a slow breath and stepped in. The faint hum of the campus turbines filled the silence. Marcus looked up, not surprised. "Forgot something?" Jared shook his head. "No, sir. I just needed to say something." Marcus nodded toward the nearest desk. "Go ahead." Jared didn't sit. His throat felt dry. "Back at that science fair," he began, voice unsteady, "I was one of the kids who laughed at you. I said some awful things. I thought it made me cool, but I was just scared. Scared that someone like you might actually succeed." Marcus didn't interrupt. He folded his arms, listening. "I still remember your face," Jared continued quietly. "You didn't say anything back. You just stood there while everyone laughed. I've carried that image for years." His eyes watered. "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air like fragile glass. Marcus studied him, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke softly. "You didn't break me, Jared. You tested me. Life does that. It puts people in front of you to see if you'll bend or build. That day, I decided to build." Jared's voice cracked. "You have no idea how much that means. I thought I was just a dumb kid being funny, but now, every time I see someone trying, I think about how I tried to crush that." Marcus nodded slowly. "We've all been that kid in some way. The question is whether you stay him." Jared wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm studying renewable engineering now. I didn't even realize you were that kid until today. Seeing that photo, seeing what you became, it hit me hard. I guess I wanted to fix a small part of what I broke." Marcus smiled faintly. "You can't fix the past, but you can redeem it. The same wind that once knocked me down is the wind that lifts turbines now. You can choose to become that wind for someone else." Jared nodded, voice low. "I will. I promise." For a moment, neither spoke. The light through the window shifted, painting the floor gold. Marcus looked out at the turning turbines. "You know," he said, "I used to think forgiveness was about letting others off the hook. But really, it's about freeing yourself to move forward." Jared exhaled shakily. "Guess we both learned something from that day?" Marcus chuckled softly. "Guess so." He glanced at Jared with warmth. "And for what it's worth, I forgive you." Long before today. The words struck Jared deeper than he expected. He managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Professor." Marcus nodded. "Now go make something worth building." Jared hesitated, then extended his hand. Marcus took it without pause. The handshake was firm, an ending and a beginning all at once. As Jared turned to leave, he stopped by the door and looked back. "You know," he said, "that fan of yours? It didn't look like much back then, but now, it looks like everything." Marcus smiled. Perspective changes with growth. The boy nodded and left quietly. Marcus stayed still for a while, the hum of the turbines seeping through the window. The laughter from that long-ago gym echoed faintly in memory. But this time, it no longer hurt. It simply reminded him how far he had come. He packed up his things, pausing to glance at his keychain, a small curved piece of metal from that old fan, polished smooth. He turned it in his hand, smiled faintly, and slipped it back into his pocket. Outside, the wind swept gently through the trees. Jared walked across campus, the turbines whirring above him. He stopped once to look back at the building, eyes bright with something new. resolve. The man he once mocked had just taught him more in 10 minutes than years of school ever could. Back inside, Marcus switched off the lights, his reflection glinting faintly in the glass. For a brief second, he saw the boy in the hoodie staring back, calm, unafraid. Marcus nodded once to the reflection, then walked away, his footsteps blending with the sound of the turbines, steady, sure, and full of purpose. The wind was strong that morning, carrying the smell of cut grass and new beginnings. Rows of folding chairs lined the university courtyard, filled with students in black gowns and families clutching cameras. Banners fluttered overhead. Commencement ceremony. College of Engineering. Professor Marcus Hill adjusted his tie at the edge of the stage, watching as graduates filed in. He had stood here many times before, but this one felt different. A small model sat on the podium beside him. An old, curved fan blade polished to a shine, mounted on a wooden base. The symbol of where it all began. The dean stepped up to the microphone, smiling warmly. And now we honor this year's recipients of the Innovation in Sustainable Design Award. This year's winner created a low-cost wind turbine that can power an entire home using recycled materials. A ripple of applause moved through the crowd. The dean continued, "Please welcome Jared Coleman." The name hit Marcus like a wave of pride. He stepped back as Jared, taller now, confident but still humble, walked across the stage in his graduation robe. The crowd clapped as Jared shook hands with the dean, then turned toward Marcus. Their eyes met. No words passed, but the meaning was clear. The same boy who once mocked an idea now stood as proof of what forgiveness and change could create. Jared accepted his award and turned to the microphone, visibly emotional. "When I was 13, he began, voice steady but thick with feeling. I laughed at someone for trying to change the world. I didn't understand what I was seeing. But that person didn't stop. And because he didn't stop, I learned what perseverance really looks like." The audience listened quietly, moved by the weight in his words. Jared continued, "That fan blade," he nodded toward the small model beside Marcus, "was once a symbol of failure. Now it's a symbol of power, real power, the kind that lifts people, not machines." Marcus blinked back emotion as applause rose again. Jared stepped aside, and the dean returned to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Marcus Hill." Marcus took the stage to thunderous applause. He smiled faintly, nodding toward Jared before facing the crowd. "What you just heard," he said, "is proof that education isn't about grades or prestige. It's about growth. Years ago, a boy laughed at me for building something small. Today, he built something that can light homes and save lives." The audience leaned in. "Life will test your vision," Marcus continued. "People will doubt you, dismiss you, even mock you. But the wind that pushes against you can also propel you forward, if you learn to use it." He placed a hand gently on the small model beside him. "This fan blade isn't just metal. It's memory. It reminds me that every setback, every cruel word, every failure was energy waiting to be transformed." He paused, letting the words breathe. "And sometimes," he said softly, "the people who once tore you down will be the ones who build next to you. That's not weakness. That's grace." The applause began softly, then grew until it filled the courtyard. Marcus stepped back, smiling with quiet satisfaction. The wind caught the edge of his coat, lifting it slightly as if nature itself approved. After the ceremony, the crowd scattered into groups for photos and hugs. Jared approached Marcus near the podium. "Guess I finally paid it forward," he said with a grin. Marcus chuckled. "You did more than that. You turned a mistake into momentum." Jared nodded. You were right, Professor. Wind doesn't choose where it blows. It just moves forward. Marcus looked out towards the spinning campus turbines. And so will you, he said. A few students called Jared over for pictures. He started to go, then paused. You keeping that old fan blade forever? Marcus smiled, glancing at the little model. As long as I breathe. It's proof that what's laughed at today might power the world tomorrow. Jared grinned. Then I'll build something worthy of standing beside it. Marcus extended his hand, and Jared shook it. Firm, confident, respectful. Then Jared jogged off to join his friends, laughter echoing across the lawn. This time Marcus didn't flinch at the sound. It wasn't cruel anymore. It was free. He stood for a moment, watching the students scatter under the bright blue sky. The turbines turned slowly behind them, blades glinting in the sun like silver wings. Marcus picked up the small model fan, felt its smooth edges and smiled. The journey had come full circle. He whispered quietly to himself, from laughter to light. Then he turned toward the crowd, the wind at his back, and walked forward. If you believe every setback can become a source of power, hit like and subscribe. Because in every story like this, there's a reminder. No dream is too small, no laughter too loud, and no past mistake too strong to stop a comeback. Stay tuned. More stories of redemption, resilience, and real transformation are coming your way.